In the last video, we saw the real issue that's going on inside of our project. We are overfetching our users. We only have to fetch each user once, but right now we're fetching them 10 times in very short order. So we need to figure out some way to fix this. In this video, we're going to start taking a look at one possible solution. This is going to be just a couple of lines of code that we're going to change, but it's also kind of hard to understand exactly what's going on with this solution. So that's why we're going to take a look at two possible ways of fixing this problem. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on a helper function that we're going to use. Inside of a new browser tab, I'm going to navigate to lodash.com/docs. We've looked at Lodash very briefly before. Lodash is a utility JavaScript library. It has a ton of functions built into it that make writing JavaScript just a little bit easier. On the search bar on the left-hand side, I'm going to look up a function called Memoize. So this is a function that we're going to use to fix our problem. The Memoize function is kind of hard to describe with words. I'm not even going to bother to try to do so. Instead, we're going to write out a really quick code snippet example to help you understand what this Memoize thing does and how it's going to help us solve this problem. All right, so on lodash.com, I'm going to open up my Chrome console. Now, make sure that you are on lodash.com as well if you want to write the same code. The reason that I want you to open up your console on Lodash is because the Lodash library is automatically injected onto Windows Scope. So we can write out a simple underscore like so, and that is a reference to the Lodash library. And again, that is only applicable on lodash.com. If you go to some other website, you're not going to have Lodash available on Windows Scope. All right, so inside of here, we're going to write out a quick function that is very similar to our fetch users function inside of our project. So I'm going to create a new function called getUser. This is going to be called with an ID. Now I'm going to go down to a new line here. To get a new line inside of your Chrome console, you can hit Shift Enter, like so. If you just hit Enter, it's going to try to run that code, which is not what we want just yet. Then inside of here, I'm going to try to make a network request with that given ID. So remember, the fetch function is built into your browser. It will make a network request. Now, we do not have any API or anything like that hooked up on lodash.com. So if we just call fetch right now with some random ID, we're probably going to see a 404 not found error message, which is totally fine. I just want to show you that we can make a request from inside this function, and you're going to very quickly see how Memoize changes the behavior. We're going to see that 404, but it's totally fine. You're still going to be able to see exactly what is really happening with Memoize. Okay, and after that, I'm going to return made a request, like so, as a string. And then I'm going to close off that function. All right, so now we have the getUser function. And we can call it by saying getUser, and then passing in some random number here, like I'll put in 2. So it says made a request, and you can see in my network request log that I made a request to /2. Now, in this case, it just happens by chance that /2 is a valid route on this website, so we did not actually get a 404 in this case. But suffice it to say, you can see that we made a request here, right? We called getUser and we made a request. That's all I want you to understand right now. Likewise, we can call getUser with 3, and we made a request as well, and we saw the string down here, made a request. Okay, so now it's time to focus on Memoize. So I'm going to create a new variable called Memoized getUser. And that's going to be the result of calling _.memoize, and then I'm going to pass in my getUser function, like so. Notice how there are no parentheses on here after getUser. We just call Memoize, and we pass in the getUser function itself. Now when we do that, Memoize is going to take our function, it's going to wrap it up with a bunch of additional code, and it's going to return a new copy of our getUser function. And this new copy is what we refer to as the memoized version of the function. So this right here, Memoize getUser, is a new function that has the same behavior as our old function that we just wrote a second ago. The only difference is that we can only call Memoize getUser one time with any unique set of arguments. After we call it one time, we can still call it, but the original function is not going to be actually invoked. Instead, Memoize is just going to return whatever we had returned previously, the last time we ran it, with the identical set of arguments. Now, even when I say that again with words, it doesn't make a lot of sense, so let's try looking at a quick example here. I'm now going to call Memoized getUser, and I'm going to pass in 3 as the argument. Now the first time that I call this with 3, the request is going to made. It is going to run our original function. And we can notice that is the case because we see the request 3 up here was made. And we see that we return the value made a request. Now here's the key part. I'm going to clear the request log, and I'm going to run that same exact call a second time. The second time I do it, the request is not made. So when we memoize a function, the original function only runs one time, just once. And then anytime we call it again in the future, the function itself is not going to run. Instead, we are just going to return whatever was returned the previous time. So we still see the return value of made a request right here, but we did not run the original function and actually make the request. But that's only on a basis of the unique arguments that we pass in. So if I pass in a new unique argument here, like say 2 instead of 3, now the first time I run this function with 2, the original function getUser is going to be ran again. So I can run this with 2, I'll see it makes the request. Now I'll clear that log, I'll run 2 again, and now you'll notice that it did not make the request. Likewise, I can try to do this with 4. The first time it's going to make the request, but then each subsequent time it does not make the request. And so I can run this now as many times as I want with 4. I can run it as many times as I want with 3, 2, and it does not make the request again. So as you might guess, this is basically the perfect solution for our problem. We only want to be able to call our action creator with a unique ID one time, because we only want to fetch each user one time. And then if we call our action creator with that same ID again in the future, we don't really want to make the request at all. So memoizing our action creator could be a very good solution here. So let's take a quick pause, and we'll start to implement this inside of our project in the next video.